All right, and we will get started. I am happy to see everyone. Welcome to our August 2022 membership check-in. If you're new to the association, I want to welcome you. These check-ins are just a great reminder each month of the work that we're doing and to give you updates on kind of things to be thinking about, what's ahead, and news and information. I'm Patrick Brown, the director of MACAE, and happy to have you here on behalf of our board of directors. I want to wish everyone a good summer. Hopefully you've had a restful summer. Many of us are working year-round still, but many of us have gotten a chance to sneak away and have a few days off. I know that personally, I had the opportunity to go on a vacation with my family. I went to Alaska, which was as wonderful as it sounds. And yes, you should add it to your list of travel destinations to go. So it was just so nice and relaxing. And I hope that you had some time away with your family and friends and loved ones as well. I want to open it up. If there's any new members to the association, if you want to unmute and introduce yourself. Do we have any new folks on the call this morning?
Yep, depends on your definition of new. I'm Jeff Platty. I took over as director of community and alternative ed in Mount Pleasant, but I was at Oasis High School and part of MACAE back in the early 2000s and stuff like that. So I left our alternative building. I went to the traditional building for 13 years, and now I'm back in the alternative and adult ed world.
Welcome. We're happy to have you, Jeff. Welcome back to the fold, right? You couldn't stay away. You couldn't stay away.
Right. Well, and realistically, in the traditional building, I worked with all the alternative type learners and stuff anyway. So I didn't really leave, but just physically left for a little bit.
But your passion is there, and that's amazing. And we're glad to have you. Welcome back. Anyone else? Any other new faces that want to say hello?
Oh, hi, I'm Melissa Robertson. I'm taking Sue Chappell's position she retired at Allegan Public. I previously, in their adult ed program, I previously was at the Allegan County Jail, working in their adult ed program for 12 years. So some carryover, but now at Allegan Public.
Wonderful. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank
yes, you have certainly a great mentor in Sue there for working so many years. And I know you'll continue to do great things there. Welcome. We're happy to have you. Anyone else? All right. Well, welcome to Jeff and Melissa. We're happy to have you, and welcome to any other members out there. You know, this is, you know, a new year, and it's amazing how from June 30th to July 1st, there is a breath of fresh air, right? Even though nothing has really changed, right? But there is something new about starting a new process and a new thing. But I think it's also important to say that many of us did not take a break this summer, and that there's been lots of happenings and going on. I wanted to highlight a few things. We've had some wonderful people retire or move on to other positions and other great opportunities, and just want to take a moment to acknowledge those people. Sue Chappell, as mentioned earlier, is one of those individuals, and we want to wish them well in their journey. There in the upper right hand corner, Betty Alia from Plainwell, longtime MACAE member and adult educator, also retired. And we've had some wonderful continuing successes. Clint and Kathy up at Pioneer Adult Education are still working all summer to get folks their diploma or high school equivalency. Celine Community Ed and some of our other community ed programs have been doing some summer camp programming. There's a picture of Celine going to the Detroit Zoo, which is a fun afternoon, I'm sure. And then the Livingston Educational Service Agency started a community garden. I know several programs have started a community garden and have had that opportunity for students to get involved with that. And so I know that I'm looking forward to seeing that and maybe get to taste some of the wonderful things that are grown there. The Refugee Development Center has been working all summer in Lansing as new arrivals and refugees have been coming into our state, and trying to help them not only get acclimated to life here, but enjoy the wonderful things that Michigan has to offer in the communities all across our state. And then finally, we were able to visit the Family Literacy Center in Lapeer. We actually had the award for Outstanding Educator to award to Meredith Donahue there, the program coordinator, from last fall conference. With COVID and schedules, we just weren't able to get that award out there. So we finally were able to visit this summer, talk to their board, see about their vision of what they're doing for programming this year. And it was so nice to be there and to award her award in person this summer. And so thanks to Mary and Meredith at the Family Literacy Center for that. A couple of other updates for you. We have also been working on your behalf on several different projects this summer. The first is that our board of directors met this July for a board retreat, a 2-day intensive retreat. If you ask any board member, we really worked all day from about 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. each day, really setting the tone and planning for this year and in the future, where our priorities lie, and kind of the process and the projects that will get us there. So more information will be released on kind of our updated strategic plan. We're still tweaking some of the verbiage and the format and what it looks like to make it user-friendly and readable for everyone, but we'll be sharing that out. But I just want to thank the board of directors for their behalf, for your participation and lots of things that prepared us for that, lots of feedback. But also want to thank the board of directors just for their time and dedication. Many traveled to Lansing to participate, but many also were participating virtually in that opportunity as well. Something else that we launched this summer was a project, a series of interviews with key stakeholder partners that we have to talk about ways in which the systems of adult alternative community education are working, and the perception with our partners that we work with regularly, and how MACAE can be an asset to not only the fields that I've mentioned, but also to partners as a whole. It's been very eye-opening. It's been very important project. We've heard a lot of trends or consistencies or themes that are common, and I think that will help inform some of our work and the professional development that we're able to do and the resources that we're able to do. And my hope is that we'll have that compiled in some sort of report this fall to share out with you all, so that you can also get kind of a sense of what that project and the scope of that work has been. So partners have included partners from Workforce Development, Community College, Michigan Rehabilitative Services, some of our early childhood partners, some of our public policy partners, some of our flexible learning partners, or folks that work within state government. And so we've kind of tried to get a well-rounded representation of that. And those interviews have been 30-minute virtual Zoom conversations with a series of questions. And so they've been informal but formal in terms of the feedback that we're trying to solicit. Members from MACAE also attended the CASAS. So those of you in adult education, the CASAS Summer Institute, learned a lot about what's happening in terms of hybrid options and remote testing capabilities, and hope to share some of that with you. Our hope is to also work this year with CASAS to offer a summer or a fall or early winter training opportunity again in our state. It's been a few years since we've been able to do that, and so we want to look at doing that. We have continued conversations about an upcoming grant program that I'm sure will be more information shared, but it's called the My Stairs Apprenticeship Program, essentially for 200 adult education participants across the state to co-enroll in adult education, as well as apprenticeship or pre-apprenticeship training opportunities. MACAE is one of the active partners in helping to formalize that grant, understand what the delivery method will be, and to kind of create an RFP process for that for providers. More information to come. It's been a great project to be engaged with, and we are one of the only states that has had this opportunity to include apprenticeship opportunities for adult learners. So over the next few weeks and months, more information and more feedback will be solicited from you all that are in that space and that work. And we have expanded some partnership conversations with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, had a great presentation with them about the services that we provide through MACAE and our many different partners. the Michigan Chamber of Commerce as they look to expand their investments in community programming and different neighborhood associations and what they want to do to really build up families across the state. And then as well, the Michigan College Access Network and thinking about trajectory for those learners that are transitioning to post-secondary. So it's been a quiet summer, but a busy summer at the same time. This would also be a good opportunity to remind you as we come back. This is a great time to say hello to your policymakers. This year is going to be very consequential for all of us as we continue to highlight and underscore the needs of the populations that we serve in all areas of our association, but also to just reiterate the impact that we have and the resources that are needed to continue to deliver the quality services that we provide. So we will send out the recording as well as the resources here, but I've linked to the website that tells you who your current legislature is. So you can go there and have their contact information and see all of that. What is relevant though, also is that our district lines are changing. And so we would encourage you all to take some time to look at your new elected leadership in the House and the Senate and the US House of Representatives, as well as districts have changed, as you know, or you probably know, all across the state. So the legislator that you have in office today on August 17th is going to be different on January 4th when they return into the new Congress. So you may have someone different. You may have your same person reelected, or you may have their opponent reelected, or in some fashion. And so we would encourage you to take a look at that, understand the landscape, and we'll continue to push some more information out about that. And really would just encourage you, it can be a simple note just to say, hello, we are here. These are some of the things that we're looking forward to this year and some of the things that we provide. And just want to wish you well and encourage you to continue to think about us in your decision making. It can be as simple as that, but really would encourage you to do that and add that to your checklist. I'm moving through these things very quickly, but if you have questions or comments, you can put them into the chat and we'll take a look at those. One of the other things that we've been working on and that we know is important is obviously staffing. Many of us are trying to fill those positions before the beginning of another program year, and wanted to remind you of a couple of resources that are still out there. The first is the critical shortages list. And if you recall, the critical shortages list was a program that was created several years ago to rehire retired school personnel into high need or critical shortage disciplines for employment. So we've included a link to the critical shortages list. You will see that there's lots of positions that are considered critical shortage. Short of everything in education is almost on the critical shortages list. And important for our populations is certainly at the top there is adult education. All roles within adult education are included on the critical shortages list. With the critical shortages, just as a reminder, someone who is retired from the school system can be rehired by a school district in a critical shortages list and have that not impact their retirement or their benefits. Something that also just was enacted into law early in August is this other program, which is called the Retirement System Flexibilities. And essentially, it not only it expands the critical shortages list. We know that the educator shortage in our state is real and really impacts every level of position. And so my understanding is that the critical shortages list will ultimately be retired in lieu of this new enactment, which essentially says that a public school employee must retire and be disassociated for 9 consecutive months with the school district, and then can be rehired in any capacity at any salary and not have any of their previous benefits from retirement be impacted. So essentially it's a widespread for all positions within education. The caveat is that they have to be separated for 9 consecutive months from their original retirement. And it does have to be retirement. It can't be anything else like a termination or anything like that, or a leave of absence or anything. It must be a retirement. So that information is included for you. I know that's an important and timely discussion, and want to make you aware of those resources as you continue to find quality staff in the many positions that you have. Another resource is obviously our job board on the MACAE website. We post jobs readily. We've got a number of positions. As MACAE members, you can put them there and we'll send them out on our listserv. And if you see something on there, we'd encourage you to look at it and to apply for that going forward. So please take advantage of those resources and know that they are out there for you. Moving along, this is a lot of information, but many of you have received this information. Essentially, we want to remind you to renew your MACAE membership. And something we have done this year is create an organizational rate. We would highly encourage you to look at the organizational rate, think about adding a person or two to your membership, because ultimately you're saving money in the long run, in terms that many of you will have yourself as a director or coordinator signed up, and then your teachers will sign up for professional development. Well, all of the professional development that we are going to be offering this year monthly, the webinars or the in-person professional development, separate from the fall conference, separate from the Spring Institute, is included in your membership this year. We've tried to do that so in grants and in individual requests, you do not have to put out a separate line item for the webinars and in-person. So in the long run, your impact is you're paying one rate and getting all of those benefits included with that. So there continues to be an individual membership for those that have vested interest, but maybe do not want to participate with the professional development, but all of the other membership rates include that professional development. I've also included the costs for some of our important activities around professional development this year. We will be having a virtual teacher fall, we're calling it a conference, but it's really going to be a half-day webinar series coming up. More information to come on that. Our fall conference information is live, registration is live. We'll talk about that a little bit later. The fall conference hotel information is also available for those of you looking to book that. It's $139 a night. And then we'll be planning a Spring Institute for late spring of 2023 as well. So those would be additional costs that you want to make sure you kind of incorporate outside of the membership. But beyond what you see on this page, there'll be no additional cost to MACAE. And we just want to thank you for your continued membership and encourage you to just be active. We hope the membership is valuable to you. A few upcoming events as well. Next week, we have the Burlington Boot Camp. You can register on the website, macae.org. If you use Burlington English and are looking for a really intense, great multi-day professional development with Brandy and Louie from Burlington to get all of your questions answered about how to use it, how other people are using it, what are best practices or strategies, or what are the updates, we would encourage you to sign up for that. Again, free for members. There is a cost for non-members. Our next MACAE membership check-in will be September 7th. So mark that on your calendar. I know it's the first week as we come back after Labor Day, but we want to kind of get into a regular rhythm for these check-ins as we go forward. September 9th, if you've been engaged with us for several years now, we've had our MACAE committees, and those committees are returning on September 9th. And they will be hybrid. So that means, yes, we will in fact be having in-person meetings once again at the MACAE office. More information and more further announcements will come as we get closer. We typically do a lunch and learn opportunity at 12 p.m. and then the formal committees will start at 1 p.m. So we welcome you to Lansing to participate in that. We will have alternative education, adult basic education, community education, high school equivalency, completion, and workforce development that will be meeting this year. And in the event that you cannot make it to Lansing, we will have each of those committees, when they break out at 1 o'clock, we'll have a virtual component available. We're going to try it. Go with us. Be patient as we work through all those tech things that we're all working through. But we're excited that many of you will be coming in and participating with the committees. And yes, Brian, yep, The check-ins will be at 9 a.m. and the check-ins are always recorded and will be posted on our website and our YouTube page as well. And then something else to put on your calendar, September 18th through the 24th is Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. This is a national event. We have been involved with lots of conversations with COABE, the National Adult Education Association, about ways in which we're going to be promoting this within our state. I also have a conversation scheduled this week with our Office of Adult Education to think about ways that we can make sure that we can streamline and advertise our services. But at one point as well is the family literacy component. We really want to highlight the family literacy and the impact that we have on the communities that we serve. So please save that date, please save that week of dates. And perhaps you have something special planned, or perhaps you'd like to talk about it within your programs. We'll be sending out some ideas of things that you can do to celebrate that week or participate in that week. We hope you will. I know it's a busy time, but we hope you will take that time, because if we can demonstrate the importance of many of the programs that we do during this time, we will have a spotlight during that week in particular, and it would be a great opportunity to highlight all of the work that we do every day. A few early and before and after school updates for those of you in the association that work there. The first is that the Department of Education for Michigan has updated its legal obligations for school personnel that work with students around abuse and neglect, and some of the reporting responsibilities that you might have as a school personnel. It would just be important to have access to that. There are often times that we experience events that may cause us to pause and to think about those things. And so it'd be good to have that link. I've linked that there and just have that readily available. Hopefully you will not have to encounter that in your experience and in your professional time, but in the event that you do, we want to make sure you have that up-to-date information. Also this fall, we're excited that there are a number of out-of-school time grants that are available. I have gotten a couple of questions about if school district community education programs can apply. Our communication with the department has been that yes, school district programs can apply. There is a webinar of next week. Actually, it's the following week, August 31st. But more information we sent out recently, and then you can also go here to this link and find out more information. I will respond to those of you that have sent me individual questions, kind of with the dialogue and the conversation, but I hope that many of you will look at that as an opportunity for your programs and to look at expansion opportunities there. Regarding alternative and youth populations, the big news obviously at the end of last school year was that the Michigan legislature and the governor signed into law additions to the Michigan merit curriculum to include a financial literacy credit for diploma completion. So anecdotally, I know many of us have said, gosh, we need that. Our youth need that component. There used to be, I know that when I was in high school, it was kind of ending that phase. But I'm forgetting what the class was called, but Mrs. Koleski was my teacher, and we did financing and bookkeeping, and we did all of those kind of I think it was called life skills. We did those life skills, cooking and measurements and all of that component. And it was valuable. It is. And then we moved in kind of more of a STEM focus. And now we're seeing that the pendulum is swinging. Isn't that funny? Back to an important emphasis on this. What's important for you all in this space to know is that the requirement for graduation for that, or the enactment of this, begins with the 8th grade class this fall. So the class that will need to be graduating with this is several years down the road. Don't make me do the math because I'm not good at the math there, but essentially 5 school years from now, the first class will be graduating with this diploma credit. But this is something that the Department of Education and school districts, I'm sure, will be having lots of conversations about building this into their capacity and how to meet those requirements and how to best serve students in meeting that requirement as well. There are also a number of policies that are very important that I would like you to look at and to pay attention to. The first is a substitute teacher permit application. This would obviously be applicable for many of our members, not just in alternative education, but there is updated guidance and substitute teacher permit application for this school or program year. It's important that you take a look at that. There also is updated guidance on the certification for specifically for alternative programs for virtual and online teaching. And I have a next slide that will kind of clear that up. So I'm going to reserve that conversation for the next slide. The last thing is that over the summer, the Michigan Task Force on Juvenile Justice Reform, I know many of us are engaged in these conversations and thinking about marginalized teens and teens that have been impacted or been involved in the juvenile justice system. They've released a new report along with recommendations on how to improve the system. It calls for major changes both in education, juvenile detention, mental health services, things such as school resource officers, and really just kind of a comprehensive analysis of the landscape of juvenile justice in our state and recommendations for changes. Nothing will be enacted at this point from the recommendations, but as we come into the fall and the legislator returns, I would expect great discussion on how to identify and address some of these major challenges as we work with juveniles and teens who may be involved in the justice system. And essentially, the goal of the task force was to make recommendations for reform and improvement within the system and identifying major gaps and how to make that a more holistic system that really is centered on the well-being of a child, a juvenile. And so that might be something that you want to take a look at and look into. And I'm sure many of you that work with those populations may resonate with that readily. The last was just an interesting article around the center from the National Center for Education Statistics on the report on the condition of education 2022. I will tell you that in many ways, the report is kind of sobering. I think many of us have experienced over the last few years, education, whether you work in education, business, training, any facet, there has been significant shifts in philosophy and significant strain on resources and capacity. And so this report, I think, does a good job of highlighting that. The challenge comes with encouraging and urging our policymakers to help make streamline efforts to combat and mitigate some of those challenges, right? That's the work that we all kind of get frustrated with. But it may be something that you would like to look at, resonate with, and really consider kind of just gaining a better or more comprehensive look at what's happening nationally with our education system across the United States. Going back to the virtual and online learning guidance, one of the concerns that was expressed, if you remember this past year, was the change for those that receive Section 21F funding or that work within the K-12 system for the Pupil Accounting Manual, and having a certified instructor or certified teacher be the teacher of record. That's really kind of the common vernacular that we're referencing this as a teacher of record. After much debate and consternation, that has been cleared up in legislation. This is past legislation that was approved with the state budget that was just passed this summer. And your local school districts will have more guidance on this, and you may want to connect them with on this. But essentially, it allows, the previous legislation did not allow for a third-party vendor to be that verified teacher of record. This new legislation provides that a third-party vendor with certain criteria does meet the qualifications to be the teacher of record, especially if they're through the Michigan Virtual University. That's one of the major proponents of this, the major pushers of this. So couple of things. First is that we think this will be a benefit, obviously, to programs, large programs, small programs that work in a virtual, online, or alternative setting. The second, probably should be the first, is that it would really behoove you to continue to have those conversations at the local level with your district leadership or with your pupil accounting officer to ensure that you are meeting the standards and that you are all set to go. That's really kind of the solution. A one size fits all is not going to be good for everyone. So you really need to kind of do your own due diligence and investigation around this. But essentially, many of the public education institutes and associations were really working on this behind the scenes to make it accessible for school districts. So I would envision that this is a breath of a sigh of relief for many. It means that a lot of programming that you're doing still falls within the parameters of what's required for pupil accounting and delivering those services. And again, I would just encourage you to talk with your local leadership and your pupil accounting manager as you continue to work through that process. Any questions? I'm seeing from Eva, will the reports be available on the MACAE website? Yes, we can put them there. Eva, we also do put, we send out the recording and the information here as well. And I wonder, Eva, if you might like to unmute and introduce yourself. You're kind of you're a pro now because you've been there for a couple of months, but you're a newer face to our association. Would you like to say hello? Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Eva. I'm the program manager here at Siena Literacy Center.
Great.
Yeah.
We're happy to have you. Great. Any other questions around this issue? All right, moving into adult education, there's a lot going on. And so here are just a few things that we think you should know about, that you might want to be thinking about. The first are a couple of interesting online articles. COABE has what they call their Advocast. And this summer, Tammy Brown, our president of the board of directors, and myself, as well as one of Tammy's students from Troy Continuing Education, had the opportunity to participate on their national podcast, the COABE Advocast, around state association advocacy. It's not worth listening to hear my voice, but it's worth listening just to hear the broader conversation with the host around what other state institutions and what other states are doing to advocate for adult education. So I'm not tooting my own horn, encouraging you to listen, because yes, I know my voice gets grainy, but I would encourage you just to listen from the perspective of what others are doing. And also the student that we had participate really was very compelling in talking about how the advocacy of her program and the advocacy of our state was inspiring to her and enabled her to be an advocate within her community as well. So there are couple of takeaways there that I think might be important for you. The other is a similar article to the previous page around Americans' hidden ground on public education, kind of where things stand after the dust is starting to settle, hopefully from the COVID pandemic. But where does that system as a whole nationally go from here? We've had a lot of supports through funding that has been made available, but how do we sustain some of those opportunities and continue to move that forward? Another resource for you is recently the Department of LEO, which is the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, announced a relaunch of the My Home Loan Program. The My Home Loan Program creates up to a certain household asking price, a verifiable loan that is guaranteed to participants that are eligible that apply, but it's very targeted towards populations that typically do not have good credit or would not have had access to home loan opportunities through a traditional bank. And so that's something so much of what we do in the space of adult education is around supporting the whole person, supporting the whole community, and some of their barriers and some of the other resources that they need outside of just education and training. And so this is something that you should know about, and that perhaps your learners should know about and have access to, and to see if they have an opportunity to apply for that, if that's something home ownership, if they're looking towards that. Now, you may also share with them that interest rates are extremely high. So whether or not they want to choose to purchase the home is another thing, but just having that information would be good, and it would be a nice resource for you. The second is that, and I'll click on this, USA Learns, which many of us know if we work in the adult education ESL space. It's been around for a very long time, but they have launched a new ESL integration course for civics. And it aligns with IELCE and IET. And I know that this is a large conversation that many of us have had with as we're required to complete those IET, IELCE templates. And many of us are always looking at ways to embed the civics component within not only the IET, IELCE, but our entire English language programming and curriculum. So I would take a look at it. See what's there. It's a free access website, and it's a free new course that they've launched. I have used USA Learns for a long time when I was in the classroom working with students. Something you want to look at as a resource for your staff, or if you're a teacher, that you might want to incorporate. The other is, as you know, national trends around digital literacy and digital learning are skyrocketing. This is the hot button conversation at the Summer Institute for CASAs, like I mentioned earlier, in adult education. The new word or the new phrase of the year is HyFlex, HYFLEX, which means hybrid flexibility. How are we providing hybrid flexibility options for our learners? So many of us have been doing HyFlex for several years now. Prior to the pandemic, many of us kicked it off during the pandemic, and many of us are continuing to do it. But in that vein, Links, which is a professional development website that many of us are familiar with, is launching kind of a HyFlex digital skills library resource network. They've got different free activities for learning digital literacy skills for different levels, but it focuses on different workplace, is device ownership, things that might be out of the general norm of what we're used to providing instruction in, or I would say that what questions that have come up, right? I don't know how many folks I've heard talk to individual learners that say, what is the best device if I'm going to get one? How do I access a device? Oh my gosh, you tell me that I need, a certain operating system. Well, what is that? What is the internet capabilities? I have to update my browser. What does that mean? Those kind of components, lessons, and examples are going to be available here on the Digital Skills Library. I know many programs are looking at adding that component or enhancing that component if they already have it within their student orientation. So this might be a good time to take a look at that and see if there's any components within the Digital Skills Library that you could incorporate within there. Policy-wise, a few updates for you around adult education. Be sure that you observe the deadline for mayor's follow-up. As a state, we are very close to meeting some of the employment metrics, which really indicates from a standpoint that we are doing a good job of educating and then transitioning adult learners into the workplace with our partners. It would be wonderful. And in some cases, we're off by points, 0.1%, 0.2%, or a few percentage points. Every follow-up matters, not only with that, but with all of the work that we do, because it really paints a comprehensive picture of where our learners are. So please, over the next few weeks, take some due diligence and time to prioritize that work. I know that it sometimes falls by the wayside as we start with a new program year and all that's encompassed with registration and those kinds of things. But within mayors, you can run a follow-up report or missing data report, and you can access that and know who you need to follow up with. We can work with you on strategies on how to meet that list. Sometimes it's a large list And sometimes it involves multiple hands at your program that are engaged with that in the follow-up. But it's so important. This is a part of our programming, and it's part of painting the picture of our impact of what we do as a state and as a field. So please try to prioritize that in the next few weeks. And also please make sure that you're using the latest adult education learner plan. I've included the link to the adult education website. The adult learner plan is updated with the 2022-2023 program year ALP, and this was last updated in May of 2022. So please make sure that you're using that as a resource, not just as a resource, but in all the work that you do. And then the big news in adult education this week was the release of the free and appropriate public education guidance for adult learners, essentially special education for adult learners between the ages of 18 to 26. My understanding is that our State Office of Adult Education will be having an upcoming webinar that MACAE will also be participating in to talk through the specifics. There were several MACAE members that were engaged from the very beginning on getting feedback in this process. I'm trying to be politically correct here. That involvement, I think, was limited in its capacity and ultimately in the outcome of this report. So I want to be optimistic that we have a tool here that is useful and that should be looked at and should be utilized. But I think that MACAE has always believed that we need to not only have policy, but we need to have templates and practices and examples of how to effectively make policy happen. That's where the sharing of best practices and resources, that's what MACAE has done for nearly 40 years. That component is not necessarily included in this guidance. So that is where I think MACAE feels the real work has to be done. There are several examples that different MACAE members have produced or are starting to put together, and we would be happy to have maybe a follow-up conversation to that and to talk about that. But I think that is probably one of the more valuable things. But again, would encourage you to review this. It would be good as well to make sure that if you're in a school district or LEA, that your special education or curriculum director is aware of this, as well as probably your superintendent. This is an important conversation. Essentially, what needs to happen is that local adult education programs work in coordination with the local school district or residents of that adult learner to provide special education support for that learner if they have an IEP or a diagnosed learning disability. I know in many cases that's not always been the case, but this is supposed to be a tool or a support that is to support you as directors of those programs to be able to do that, as well as provide guidance for local school district leaderships that may not have adult education programming or may not be engaged in adult education programming in their regular work. We can talk about this more in depth at the end, but happy to address any questions or things of that nature. Any questions about anything adult ed related?
Hi, Patrick. It's
Hi,
Mary
Mary Jo.
Jo. Hi. I put a question in the chat. I don't know if anybody knows. I read in policy, I think for the ALP, that everybody needs to have an eligibility form, it says. And I didn't know if that was for new students. We always did the eligibility for returning students, but does anybody know if we need one on file for every single student now?
I do not know the answer to that question. I know but I can refer to our assessment policy folks and circle that back when we send out this follow-up, Mary Jo, unless someone else has more ready information.
I put an email out to Brian too, but
Okay,
he was out of
great.
the office, so I haven't heard anything back, but so I just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, and if you get a response to Mary Jo, please share that as well, because that's, I want to make sure everyone's up to date with that information, and I can include that in this information as well.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. A couple of things that might be interesting to you around integrated education and training. The new Michigan's Hot 50 Jobs Report was just released. It's interesting. I was looking at it yesterday. Our state is changing and the economic climate is certainly changing. So I would encourage you, those of you that work within the IET space, to take a look at that. What was pre-COVID, what was during COVID, and what is now coming after COVID. The landscape in your region may be changing, and the economic climate and the jobs there that are in the service areas that are needing to be filled may be shifting. The landscape may be shifting. So that's a responsibility that we have as part of that network to be informed of that. I know many of you get those updates from your workforce development partners, but wanted you to have direct access to it as well so that you can take a look at that. What it looks like is essentially just the report from the Department of Budget and Tourism Management. And there's a more detailed report that comes with it as well. But essentially it talks about what are the business trends and projected job openings in our state. And if you compare this to even a quarter ago or even last year at this time, there have been whole shifts in the landscape. Yeah, let's check on the eligibility. Maybe we'll have a few minutes here. We're coming to the end, and we'll check on that as well. We can look at the assessment policy on that. I think this is almost the end here, but would remind you to register for the fall conference. Registration is open and available. The hotel accommodations are also available. Our website will be updated. There's not a direct link, but if you go to the professional development page, there will be all this information coming soon. And we will also be opening up the RFP for sessions. I know I've talked with some individual folks that have said, hey, I'm interested in a session. Please encourage, if you have lessons learned or an opportunity that you'd like to share with your colleagues and with the field, please send us ideas, not only for sessions that you'd like to see at the conference, but also sessions if you're interested in presenting. We always encourage that. That is what our network does, and that's what is just very important. Yes, Julie, yes. Believe me, I watch all of you guys on Facebook on your social media business pages. So Julie,
yeah, I see that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I looked closer going, that's me. What am I doing?
I think you were doing a learner math lesson
I think so.
Right?
I think so. Wow.
In your spare time, right?
Right. Because that's what I do in my spare time. Oh my.
The conference is November 14th through the 16th. I'm surprised that I did not put a date here, but it's November 14th through the 16th in Muskegon at the Van Dyke Mortgage Convention Center. So you see this lovely picture here with the sunset and the blue skies and the water. That is actually in Muskegon, but I want you to envision maybe a gray sky with more clouds and maybe ice on the water. And then that would maybe be a more realistic depiction of what the conference will look like in November in Muskegon. So it's beautiful, but I also want us to be realistic about bringing our parkas because we've never done a conference in November before, and we're gonna try it out and see how it goes. But I'm so looking forward to seeing so many people at our fall conference. This will be the first fall conference that we've had in 3 years, and we're looking forward to it. So with that, we'll sign off formally. We got about 10 more minutes. We'll open it up for question and answer and some discussion. Maybe we can dive into some of those specific questions that people had. But thank you so much for being here and taking time this morning. Again, the resources that we shared, the recording, as well as this with all the links will be sent out to you and we posted very soon to the website as well as to our MACAE YouTube page. We look forward to being a partner for progress this year. We've got a lot of work ahead and we're better when we are stronger and working together. And I just want to wish you well, health and safety and success in your endeavors as you work these next couple of weeks to really ramp up programming and get things going. And just thank you again for your commitment to our organization, making it better. And we hope that we can return that back to you by resource sharing and all these best practices. So thank you so much. We'll see you next month, September 7th at 9 a.m. for our next check-in. I'm going to sign off from the recording for now, but we'll stay on if you've got individual comments or questions that you'd like to raise up. Thank you. Take care.